Hello there, William here again. Welcome back and thank you for joining me again. Now, last week I promised you something a bit controversial. And the controversial project that I'm going to embark on this week is going to be a two-piece or a faux hollow form. So, what's controversial about a two-piece or faux hollow form? Well, it's kind of cheating, isn't it? Cheating in respect of taking two pieces of wood, hollowing them out, gluing them back together, making it look like a hollow form. Now, hollow forms are, I would say, an advanced Woodturner project, since they take quite a lot of practice and, of course, some special tools to get in those nooks and crannies in the inside for the excavation. So then the purpose of this video is to allow a novice woodturner with some basic tools and equipment and basic skill levels to produce something that it looks like a hollow form. Now, I don't consider that inappropriate or cheating in any way, as long as the turner doesn't claim it to be a hollow form, and that's the way that I've titled this project, is a two-piece faux hollow form. Now, two-piece hollow forms are nothing new. Back through my vast collection of woodturning magazines and some books I have, there are many examples. Now, in all the previous instructions that I've read on producing two-piece hollow forms, the author has pretty much relied on using bland, unblemished pieces of wood and concealing the joins. Now, in this video, I'm going to attempt to do something different. I'm going to attempt something similar using a piece of yew and by concealing the join by matching the figure. Now, this is the first time I've tried this, so bear with me. I've no real idea if it's going to work out or not. It's just an idea that went through my mind and I thought it might be interesting. Okay then, so this is the piece of timber that I'm going to use for the project. It's an old piece of yew. I think it's well seasoned. It's 10 inches long by about 6.5 or so ish inches in diameter. But I suspect once I get it roughed out, it's going to be no more than about 5 inches in diameter. Now, the log is quite nice because the centre of the wood is not in the centre. It's off to one side, and therefore, optimistically, I can get some nice white sapwood and the heartwood incorporated in the makeup of this piece. So, first task then is to get this mounted between centres, get it roughed out, find out what the size of the blanket is I'm going to have to work with, and then I can design something around that. Okay, firstly then I'm going to find the centre of each end, and this may not necessarily be the physical centre, but the centre which gives me the best outcome in terms of grain pattern and a share of sapwood and hardwood. Now at this stage I'm going to choose which end is the top and which end is the bottom, based upon the continuity of the grain, so that I can get the best match. Now, before I start, I'm just going to refresh the edge of my spindle roughing gouge on my Sorby Pro Edge. After donning my face mask to protect me from bits of bark and other flying debris, I need now to reduce the log to good timber in its entire length. Now, I've reduced it to about 6.5 inches along its entire length, which is about right for a piece. It's probably going to end up about 8 inches long, but there is a deep inclusion still existing in the piece, and I think I'm going to have to include it in the design. Okay, having squared off the ends, I now know what available wood we have for the project, and now able to put pen to paper and make a final design. Okay, the concept is then that I will turn a tenon on the top and the bottom of the blank. The one at the bottom will be for the hollow form itself, and the one at the top will be for the lid. Now, even at this stage, I think I'm going to have to slightly alter the design because I need to lose that bit of rot or bark near the rim. Now, I would have to say that European yew is my most favourite native wood. It finishes very well. It's always got a high variation of grain, colours, but it can be quite difficult to work with because there's difference in hardness between the hardwood and the softwood. Now, before I separate the two pieces, I'm going to fill this void with some very thin CA glue in the hope that it stays together. Now, in order I lose the minimal amount of wood involved in the cutting process, I've decided to cut it on the bandsaw. Now, hopefully the way that I've cut this on the bandsaw, hopefully choosing the right end, I shouldn't have too much trouble in matching up the grain when it comes to gluing the lid on. So I'm just remounting it on the lathe using the Colossus jaws yet again. Okay, as I mentioned before, I'm going to reprofile the top of the hollow form so that I lose that bit of bark or rot at the lip. Also, I'm going to add a lot more thin CA glue to make sure that what's left doesn't break up during turning. So I'll carry on removing most of the material using spindle roughing gouge before switching over to a spindle gouge. Now, before I get into hollowing, I'm going to drill a 25mm pilot hole down the centre with a Forstner bit. Because of the depth of the pilot hole, I needed to use the Forstner extension bit. Now, for smaller pieces, like this faux hollow form, it's very convenient to turn the lathe head through 45 degrees to permit easier access. Now, at this stage, I did notice a crack in the yew, nothing unusual with yew, which I decided I would fill in with some CA glue and also add some more CA glue into the rot or the bark inclusion, whatever it is, I'm not sure, just to make sure it's retained in place. Now, it did occur to me at this point that I should do some abrasive work on the outside and make sure it looks okay, because there is some sapwood and some heartwood and some bark there before I hollow it, after which time it would be too late to change the profile. Okay, the abrasive work turned out okay, there won't be any issues, except for that crack has reappeared again, so I'm going to fill it with some sawdust and some cellulose sanding sealer this time, just to try and disguise it a little bit. Now, moving on to the hollowing, I thought this would be a very good opportunity for me to get to know my Crown Revolution hollowing system a bit better. I've had this tool a little over a year. I've had 2 or 3 outings with it, with varying results, and those varying results are because of my inexperience, not because of the tool. I've seen it used by Mark Sanger and others to great effect. Okay, having spent about 20 minutes with this particular tool hollowing out this project, I eventually found where the sweet spot is on the cutter and successfully roughed it out. I found with this tool that taking very light cuts achieves a much better result than trying to take a deep cut. Now, once I get the walls to about 8mm thick and nice and smooth, I can then move on to doing abrasive work on the inside here. So I've made up some simple abrasive sticks using a piece of plywood with some rubber backing and some strip abrasive. And I made one stick for each of the grits I have in my box. Although in this case I only intend to sand down to 240. The improvised sticks worked quite well, and eventually I could get a finishing mop in there. Now, just about here I got slightly out of sync with my video recorders and wasn't recording when I thought I was recording and was recording when I wasn't supposed to be recording. Anyway, normal service was resumed quite quickly. Moving on now then to think about the lid. Okay, just squaring up the rim here, making it slightly concave, because I believe that the lid now is going to be slightly concave and not convex as I had in my sketch. And here just cutting the recess for the top to fit in. Okay then, here just taking the internal measurement for the lid and then moving across to my other lathe, the record powered DML 320, and facing off the inside of the lid. Having sanded and finished the inside of the lid, thereafter it's a question of trial and error until I get the lid to fit inside the recess. So eventually I get a reasonable fit, which means I can now glue this in place. I'm using PVA glue for this because I believe it will. There's less chance of it marking the wood. And lastly, I'm holding it in place by bringing up the tailstock. And at this point I'm going to leave it overnight so that the PVA glue has a time to cure fully. Okay, that looks like it's set nice and firmly overnight. So now I just need to profile the lid and try and make it match the rim. So my tool of choice here is a very sharp 1-inch flat scraper, which should allow me to get into the corners. Now, eventually, of course, I realised that I should have drilled a pilot hole through the top before I turned it back through 45 degrees. So, off camera, I did this using the Jacob chuck and a 10mm bit. So the pilot hole appears as if by magic, and I extend it to about 3/8 of an inch. That's kind of credible, isn't it? So the top cleans up quite nicely and is approximately the profile that I was after, which means I can move on to sanding. From here on, I'll be going through my default 10-stage finishing process, which includes sanding, sanding sealer, Yorkshire grit and Hampshire sheen. If you want to skip this, just fast forward to 18 minutes and 20 seconds to catch the end. Okay, so there we have it then, the completed project. A faux hollow form. Aesthetically, quite pleasing, quite nice. You, of course, difficult to beat it. But I think trying to pass it off as a real hollow form, I think it would take a complete idiot to believe that, to be honest. Oh, what's this then? A bud vase? No, but, whoa, it's very light. Whoa, that's a hollow form. Did you make this? Did you steal it? No. Did you buy it? Whoa, it's even polished inside. How the hell did you do this? Well, I take everything back. This is a work of art. I'm going to go off to show her indoors. What? Now, next week's project is currently buried somewhere inside this pile of cypress. But there will be colour, there will be gilding, there will be charring.